Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikim Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopah Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes. Text 2. It is 252. Yadrupam yadadishtanam yatasrishtam idam prabho yat samstham yat param yaccha tattatvam vadatattvataha. Reading once again. Yadrupam yadadishtanam yatasrishtam idam prabho yat samstham yat param yaccha tattatvam vadatattvataha. Yadrupam yadadishtanam yatasrishtam idam prabho yat samstham yat param yaccha tattatvam vadatattvataha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? Purport. The inquiries by Narada Muni on the basis of factual cause and effect appear very reasonable. The atheists, however, put forward many self-made theories without any touch of cause and effect. The manifested world, as well as the spirit soul, is still unexplained by the godless atheists through the medium of experimental knowledge, although they have put forward many theories manufactured by their fertile brains. Contrary to such mental speculative theories of creation, however, Narada Muni wanted to know all the facts of creation in truth and not by theories. Transcendental knowledge regarding the soul and supersoul includes knowledge of the phenomenal world and the basis of its creation. In the phenomenal world, three things are factually observed by an intelligent man: the living being, the manifested world, and the ultimate controller over them. The intelligent man can see that neither the living entity nor the phenomenal world are creations of chance. The symmetry of creation and its regulative actions and reactions suggest the plan of an intelligent brain behind them. And by genuine inquiry, one may find out the ultimate cause with the help of one who knows them factually. Very nice purport, very technically sounding scientific purport. Read the translation once again. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of the manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakhan Tamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणम्। Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you for today's Bhagavatam class. Stop sharing this. So, this is the section, second canto, where Narada is asking Brahma, what is the cause of creation? How is the creation taking about? Of course, Brahma is going to explain in detail. We are going to get some details here and some details later also about the creation. And Bhagavatam stands distinctly from all the other scriptures, from the other religions, as well as from our own Vedic literature, in terms of the clarity it gives on this aspect of creation. It gives a very, very detailed description of how creation happened. Just like any other religion in the world, we see that even Vedic religion, even the Sanatan Dharma, also says that the world has come about from a creator, right? It's kind of it doesn't match with the scientific understanding in one sense that everything came about from a singularity and all that. We are going to discuss a little bit about that. But then before getting into the topic, I wanted to quote uh, one one devotee from our movement. His name is His Grace Rasaraj Prabhu. He is the um, director of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, which was established under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada by His Holiness Tamal. Sorry, what is his name? Swarup Damodar Maharaj. Swarup Damodar Maharaj, if you remember, is the person who interviewed Srila Prabhupada, and I mean they had a very long conversation on how life came about, and that conversation is what we see in the book Life Comes from Life. There you see his name as Dr. T.D. Singh. His name is Swarup Damodar Swami later. So basically, if anyone has read that book, you will understand how Prabhupada very systematically gives his argument about how life cannot come from life. If you haven't read that book, I seriously suggest that please read that book. It is a very it will just hook you to it, right? It's a very scientifically explained. Prabhupada explains so many things just through what we observe around. So he gives the example of a neem tree, sorry, not neem tree, the lemon tree. He says that when this lemon tree is alive, it will produce a lot of citric acid. But when it is dead, it cannot produce any citric acid. So what has changed? So like this, he puts on so many arguments actually. And even Sarup Damodar Maharaj also asks very deep and insightful questions. And the whole book has a lot of even scientific value, not only the spiritual value that we generally see. So basically, this Bhaktivedanta Institute was established by Sarup Damodar Maharaj. And then after he left this world, it is being led by His Grace Rasaraj Prabhu, who is also a very brilliant scientist. He's a brahmachari, but then he used to visit IIT Chennai when I was studying there, and he used to present so many wonderful topics. So in one of the talks, he was just saying that why do science and spirituality appear not to match? Right? We say that okay, creation came from God, and science says that creation came from somewhere else. Right? It came from a singularity. And then we both appear to be like two different tracks completely. So he said the problem is that the scientists do not try to understand what is being spoken in the spiritual circles. Scientists do not know what is spirituality. And then The spiritual seekers, they do not know what is science. That's the problem, right? So we do not know completely what the science is saying, and the scientists do not know what uh, spiritualists are saying. So he says that this is only half the problem. Scientists do not know the spirituality, and spiritualists do not know the science completely. So this is only half the problem, he says. He goes on saying that the other half of the problem is that scientists do not know science, and spiritualists do not know spirituality also, right? That means our understanding of, even the scientists that we see in this world today, most of them, their understanding of science is not so deep. They actually don't ask the right questions. Similarly, even the spiritualists also, many times, the devotees that we see also around in ISKCON, we generally don't try to go into the depths of spirituality. It's not a general tendency, that few devotees are there who go into the depths of spirituality and try to understand it from a philosophical perspective. From, for that you need to have a certain type of intellectual capacity to do that. Mostly even in India, we see that, not only in ISKCON, many other organizations, there are people who get an emotional satisfaction in spiritual life. That is good. That is good. It's not that it is wrong. But then we generally don't tend to go into the depths of spirituality to understand it from its core. So, as I said, as I'm quoting from His Grace Rasaraj Prabhu, the problem is twofold. The first half of the problem is that scientists do not know spirituality, and spiritual people do not know science thoroughly, right? The second half of the problem is scientists do not know science, and spiritualists do not know spirituality also, right? So he actually goes on saying that, because of this two-folded problem, we can never bridge the gap between science and spirituality, right? So that's why I think, such devotees are like very empowered to actually do a lot of research in science and spirituality, both of them. And that's why now they are in the Bhaktivedanta Institute, they are offering PhD level courses on consciousness, on the soul, on reincarnation, all these things. So varieties of courses are being offered right now. So I just wanted to start with that, because there are two questions which science always feels like, we are just about to answer, but it hasn't answered in the last, whenever the scientific renaissance has started. The two questions are, what is the cause of creation? What is the origin of creation, right? And then the second question is, what is the origin of life? So the origin questions, these are called the, from where these two came from, right? Where is life coming from? Where is creation coming from? Where is the whole material world coming from? So these two questions have not been satisfactorily answered by the spiritual circles in the last 200 to 50 years, since science has started taking its roots. And in one sense, the world religions, all of them accept on one point that the world, the whole material world that we see, is created at some point. It is not it is not like how science says it was created. That means it implies a creator, that there is someone, an intelligent being, who created that. Just like Bible says, like, let there be light, and there was light. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And it explains that the whole creation was done in 6 days, and some details are given in the first chapter of Bible, right? Genesis. But then if we see the Vedic literatures, especially Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be the Amalam Puranam, topmost Vedic literature, we can clearly make a distinction in our Sanatana Dharma. This topic has been like explained so thoroughly, so scientifically, and so systematically. So the details of how much is revealed differs from scripture to scripture, from religion to religion, from Bible to Quran to whatever Vedic literature. But then they all have one thing in common, that God created this world at some point. Now, today we are I'm trying to, I'm not going to reveal the secrets that we are all going to hear in the next classes, but I wanted to create some interest in the topic of how this creation has happened. and what is the views of science and what is the views of spirituality, and what is more reasonable is what is left to your choice. You can decide upon what is more reasonable, right? And this will help us to understand the future verses that are going to come, like Brahma is going to answer this question of Narada Muni of what is creation, how it has come about. So it's a general tendency, like whenever we see something beautiful, we always tend to ask this question: who is the person who is behind it, who created this, right? Like for example, we go to purchase a house, let us say, and we go inside and see all these beautiful things, and it's not that it just came about by chance. There is some creator. In our experience, we do not see anything beautiful that comes about by chance. Even a simple thing like a pencil, like for example, if a child finds a pencil on a seashore, and imagine you are walking on a seashore with your son or daughter. If this child finds a pencil on the seashore and he or she asks you, how did this pencil come about? And you say that since time immemorial, these waves are hitting on the shore of the ocean, and after a million hits, this pencil has come into existence. That doesn't make any sense to the child, right? He says, no, it doesn't make any sense. Even a child understands that it did not happen like this. Nothing in this world that we see is without a purpose. Nothing in this world we see came about by chance. But then we tend to say, or the scientists tend to say, that everything has come about by chance and it is without a purpose, right? So we don't see anything like that. You try to observe the world around you. There is nothing in this world that is without a purpose and which has come about by chance. There is purpose for everything. And there is also, like for example, I see a stool, or I see this laptop. There is a purpose for this laptop, and I'm keeping it on a cooling pad. There is a purpose for that also, right? And the ingredients that go into the cooling pad, like the plastic, the metal, and from there they make a fan, and they make a circuit. All these things have a purpose, and they are created by someone. But when it comes to the question of who created this world, the scientists have not answered it as thoroughly as the Vedic literature, at least, right? And the Vedic literature has given us a very deep understanding of this subject, and based on this creation model, based on the explanations given on Srimad Bhagavatam, the temple of Vedic Planetarium is also being constructed right now in Mayapur. Right? We will all see that in our lifetime, right? Soon it is going to come to a completion. So basically the point is, like, science actually says that everything came from a singular point. And we as spiritualists, we also say that everything came from God. So what's the big difference, right? It came from one point and this came from God, right? What's the big difference? The difference is this. The difference is the difference between the matter and spirit. That's the difference, actually. We have to understand that matter left to itself cannot organize itself, right? So if matter is left to itself, it actually deteriorates. It cannot improve itself. It cannot make itself better than what it was before, correct? Like, for example, we leave any room, in our home, maybe we have some storage or something. Just close the room for, let us say, 20 years. Don't open it. After 20 years, if you get into the room, what will you observe? Do you observe it better than the condition where you left it? No, definitely not. There will be cobwebs, there will be dust, there will be, so many other things. You may have to clean the room, right? This is how matter deteriorates, actually. I'm just giving an example of a room, but you take anything for that matter. It just, it is depreciating only. It can never improve itself compared to its previous position. Like in our computational science, we always see at different time steps, right? There is a time step t and there is a time step t+1. That means some time later. So the condition at t+1 is always worse than the condition at time t, right? So that is how it is. Matter, when it is left to itself, it cannot improve itself, right? But when matter is combined with the spirit, Then it goes through 6 stages of changes, right? We learn that birth, growth, then some maintenance, then producing byproducts, dwindling, and death, right? This is how, when matter and spirit combine together, matter actually sustains itself. Or we cannot say it sustains itself. It is actually, it appears to be sustaining itself, but it is sustaining because of the spirit behind the matter, right? Like we also have this experience, like if we are all living entities, and we are occupying this body, we are in this body, and because of which this body appears to be animated. Just like you keep your hands in a glove and try to move, it appears like the gloves are moving, but then actually the hand is moving, because of which the gloves appear to be moving. Similarly, this body is made of matter only. This body is never alive. This body is always dead. Since its inception, it has been a dead lump of matter only. But then the soul, which is sitting inside this body, occupies this body through consciousness, because of which it appears to be lively. And as soon as the soul leaves the body, how long does the body stays like that? It doesn't stay anymore, right? That's why they have to keep the dead bodies in a freezer for the loved ones to come from far distances, right? So we all know that. And if we just leave that body like that, what will happen? It decomposes. It doesn't stay even for 2 days, right? They have to apply so many chemicals, so many things to just keep it from decomposition, right? So basically, matter, when it comes in contact with spirit, it goes through the 6 changes. But when matter is left to itself, it cannot actually improve itself. Just now I have taken bath. You also have taken bath. We can clean our body. We can actually, what do we call? We can maintain our body, basically, right? So when it comes to the comparison between God creating this universe and the whole universe coming from a singular point, the difference is this: God is by definition, he is the supreme consciousness, whereas this singularity is nothing actually, right? And if we try to understand from the scientific perspective, it says that this singular point is something with infinite density, with infinitesimal size, but it has an infinite density, infinite temperature, and infinite pressure within. This is how the Big Bang theory actually terms it. And everything exploded at some point of time. Now this is one thing we are discussing, that matter and the difference between matter and spirit, right, when it comes to the origin of creation. Now someone may ask, okay, we accept that there is a singular point, or there is God, but who is the cause of that singular point? So science doesn't know what is the answer for this. Definitely it doesn't go beyond that singular point. It assumes that this singular point somehow exists. And in this sense, Vedic scriptures give a very more reasonable understanding, actually. They say that God, by definition, is Sarvakarana Karanam. That is the title of the chapter also that we are discussing, the cause of all causes. God is Sarvakarana Karanam. That means he is the cause of all causes. Logically, if we think about it, it is something like God actually is someone who is the original cause, right? So if you keep on going, in a reverse direction, or what we call a regression, right? Who is my cause? Okay, my mother and father, then their mother and father, then their mother and father. Like that, you keep on, going on a regression to the final point. Whatever point where it stops, that is God, actually. That's the definition of God. Now, Prabhupada also says it in one of many places. He speaks about it. In one of the interviews, he says that who is the cause of God? Then Prabhupada says, if there is a cause of God, we accept that cause as God, right? So that's the definition, that the end point of all the regressions, actually, where it ends, that we accept as God, right? And of course, later comes the details, like what is his name, where does he live, all these things are later. From a pure philosophical or logical point of view, this is how we try to understand who is that source. Now this definition itself gives us or tells us that the cause of all causes cannot have a cause, right? If there is a cause for that cause, then we accept that cause as God. That's as simple as that. right? Now, this seems to be kind of illogical to some people, thinking that, okay, how can the cause of all causes cannot have a cause? That also is explained by the Vedic literature. It says that this question actually comes that what is the cause of all causes, or the cause of all causes. This question actually comes because we are conditioned to think in a particular domain, that is the space and time domain. This is called the space-time fabric, right? In this space-time fabric only we think. We can only go in XYZ directions, and science accepts time as one of the dimensions, but spiritual science of the Sanatana Dharma says it a little differently. It says that it is a one-way flowing dimension. Like, for example, we take length, breadth, and height. These are XYZ coordinates, and these three coordinates are you can go forward and backward also. But time is something which always flows forward. There are so many paradoxes around this. Like, for example, if you can go back in time, what will happen? If you can go back in time, like many of these sci-fi movies also are there on that, right? So if you go back in time, what happens? Like, for example, let us say I killed a person. I killed my father, let us say. This is just an example. Don't take it seriously. I killed my father. Now, if I can go back in time, I can go to a time where my grandfather has not yet got married, and I kill my grandfather, let us say, right? Then where is the question of my father taking birth and me taking birth? It's impossible, right? So these are certain paradoxes which are there in science also. So basically what I mean to say is that the time is something which always flows forward. It doesn't flow backward, right? So these three dimensions, the other three dimensions, which are the XYZ, they actually can go. I mean, we can see both of them, but time we cannot see both direction. We can only see the forward direction. We cannot see the reverse direction, right? So basically, these three dimensions and the time which are there, these are the space-time fabric that we call in scientific terms. So the God is someone who is beyond the space-time fabric, right? So he doesn't fall under the domain of space-time. Like, I'll give an example. Like, for example, if a child takes a storybook and he starts reading the storybook, he goes on page by page by page. He sees all the characters. He sees so many emotions flowing through, so many adventures happening, and all these things are happening. Now, at the end of the book, the child also realizes that, okay, there is an author also of this book. He sees the last page where there is, about the author. He reads the entire thing, and if he feels like, where is this author? I missed him. Where is this author in the book? He starts reading from the beginning, and he finds the author is not there in the book, right? But author is the person who created the entire scenarios, all the timelines, all the characters, all the different interactions between the characters. That author created all of them, but then author is not there in the book, right? So similarly, Krishna is like the author of the whole material creation, of course, through his energies, not directly. But then we try to find him in this. It's very difficult. Vedic literatures actually give us some understanding of that. How we can try to, the first step of God realization that we have seen, how we can see this material world and try to understand, like how God created all this, or there is a intelligent creator behind this creation. But then Krishna is someone who is outside of this time domain. And that's why it is very difficult to come to a conclusion like, okay, from the scientific perspective, from the science perspective, that, okay, this is the cause of all causes, because science inherently assumes that the cause of creation is within the creation, right? Cause of creation is within the creation. That's where the problem comes actually. When our Sanatana Dharma very clearly explains that no, he doesn't belong to this domain. He actually belongs to a different domain totally, right? So this is one more thing. Like, we discussed about the singularity and God, and then we discussed about how God is outside of the domain of space and time, because of which he can create. And then Bhagavatam also goes into much more detail of the creation, right? Like in the 10th chapter of the second canto, the first verse says, Atra sargo visargascha sthanam poshanam evacha manvantareshanu katha Nirodha, Muktirashraya. These are the 10 topics which are discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll see that when we go there today. Now we are in the 5th chapter only. We'll go to the 10th chapter eventually. So the creation actually took place in 2 stages. That's what our scripture Bhagavatam actually says, that the 2 stages of creation are Sarga and Visarga. Sarga is the primary creation and Visarga is the secondary creation. So primary creation happens, it is like, building the building blocks of a building. It's like that. So we have, if I want to construct a building, then I need wood, I need, metal, I need stone, whatever, sand, so many other things. So we bring them together. That is like, like an example, like I want to create a massive construction in a jungle. One level of it is, which comes, which rises on that land, like, I actually bring together sand, wood, and all these things, and build the, I mean, take the construction to a next level. But then before that, there is something which happens, that is, our planning. On the paper we say, okay, this is the land, this is what we want to do, all that. So this is a blueprint, and from there you bring together all the ingredients and then start building. So so in this way only our universe also has been created. Like, the first level of creation, which we called as Sarga, is till the point where Vishnu creates Lord Brahma, and he also creates all the material ingredients. Everything is there ready, but they are not activated, right? And Brahma comes and he actually puts the soul and the matter together, where they can actually go through the 6 changes. And they think that there are various things, like it is created, a false ego is created, then the mind is created, intelligence is created, 3 modes of material nature are already there in the Pradhana. So the time element actually comes. Krishna, Vishnu glances at the living entities, and the time is injected into the universe, and then everything starts flowing, right? So this is these details, of course, we are going to see in the later sections of Srimad Bhagavatam. But then, pertaining to the question of Narada Muni, this is very interesting question, like, how this universe has come about. This is a common question. This is a question which any thoughtful man has in this world, right? But then the answers differ depending on what are we approaching. Are we approaching limited scientific understanding? Of course, people have been making a lot of progress in science. We don't deny that. We don't actually say that science is bad. But when it comes to the questions of these origins, science actually doesn't give us a very solid understanding. So there is one more reason why science cannot give this kind of understanding. That also we'll discuss, and that will be the last section of today's discussion. So basically, science tries to extrapolate from a small sample of our limit, of our understanding. Like, for example, all the scientific theories or scientific observations have been made in the last 200 or 300 years, right? As we know as modern science, right? So those are all made in the last maybe 300 or at the max 400 years, not more than that. But then we can see that before the modern scientific era, there was pre-scientific world. There the science existed in a different way, right? For the, let us say, we can go up to 2000 years before today, right? 2500 years before, as we know, right? But then this is a small sample of how long the earth has been existing, right? We know that earth has been existing, even the science says, for that matter, that earth has been existing for so many millions of years. And then we don't have any information of what has happened from the beginning till last 2500 years. And this small 2500 years domain we take, and then we try to extrapolate to a large domain, and then it is bound to, it is not very certain that whatever we are experiencing has really happened. Just to clarify this, I'll give an example. Like, for example, an extraterrestrial being comes to earth, let us say, during our Sunday class, Sunday evening Sunday feast program, And then he sits at the back of our temple. He also attends the class, and he wants to go and report to his fellow beings in the other planet now what Earth looks like. He comes between 5 and 7 o'clock uh, to our program. He attends our program. He attends the arti. He attends the class, and then he attends the feast, and then he goes back to his world, his planet, and there he goes and reports that the whole Earth is made up of you know two kinds or three kinds of beings like male, female, and children. They are there, and most of them are within the age group of 35 to 40. That's how our community is made of, most of us, right? Few are a little older, but then he says this, and he says that the only activity that people on the earth do is that they sit together, they do some kirtan, and then they hear the lecture and then eat, put it on a repeat mode. Right? After eating, then go back to singing, hearing, and then eating again, right? So now he goes and reports it to in his planet. Now what is the fault here of this? His observation is not wrong, right? What he observed, it is right, but then his extrapolation is wrong, correct? So science also has the same issue, actually. Science has brought us so many conveniences and all these things, based on so many observations. It observed that there are laws and there are designs that come out of these laws. But then it extrapolates this small understanding to the entirety of creation. How much do we know of the creation? We know very, very little, right? Even with our advanced technology, we know very little. If we see from the perspective of, Lord Mahavishnu, our universe is just like a mustard seed in a bag of mustard seeds, right? It's nothing. And then we observe this limited space in a limited time and try to extrapolate this observation to the entirety of the universe. And that is where, our observations may be right, but then our extrapolation may not be right. So Bhagavatam actually gives us the perspective of Mahavishnu, actually. Right? We can see that very clearly, like, from his perspective, how things are happening, at what scale they are happening. So these things are very elaborately explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's what actually makes us feel like Bhagavatam has more answers to the questions on this origin of creation and origin of life than the modern science. Now, if we want to go deeply into Srimad Bhagavatam and try to understand, we may also find that, okay, some things are not explained clearly. So that brings us to the next question, actually. If things are not explained clearly in Bhagavatam, or if we encounter different versions of the same topic as different explanations, actually, in Srimad Bhagavatam or even other Vedic literature, why there are these little bit of contradictions here and there. So Prabhupada actually was asked this question, like, when did the Jivatma come to this material world? Why did he come is one question that we all know philosophically, but when did he come? What is the origin of Jiva in the material world? How did he come here? When did he come here? So Prabhupada actually, he was trying to explain to his disciple. Finally, he closed this argument like this. He said that when did the Jiva come to this world is not as important as how to go back to the spiritual world, right? So by this, he wanted to say that, our Vedic scriptures also give us detailed understanding of how the creation has taken place. And many devotees, even in ISKCON, they have written books on, what is cosmology and how this universe has come about. So many devotees have written very wonderful books. But ultimately, we all also have to understand that, just by understanding these things in a more detail, it will not help us to solve the problems of life, right? Philosophical understanding or mental, intellectual titillation is, if someone has the tendency, then it is good to go in that direction, because that is a very great meditation for them. But then we also have to understand that, the limitation is not on the knowledge itself, but the limitation is on us. Our limitation is that, how much can we understand with this 1,000 grams of fertile brain. How much can we understand? How much can we actually comprehend is the question. We ourselves are inherently limited in so many ways. Even though certain aspects of knowledge are given to us, we may not be able to process it. We may not be able to understand it. This is one big difference between the scientific approach and the spiritual approach. That the scientific approach assumes that human beings have a capacity to understand everything, right? Whereas the spiritual approach says that no, it's not possible. Because as I said, we are like living on a small mustard seed actually. How much are we? How insignificant are we compared to the gigantic universe or the creators of this universe, right? It's impossible to actually fathom, the breadth and width of the creation. At the max, what we can do is we observe things here and then extrapolate these things to some other galaxy. That's all. And that may not be entirely right. That may not be completely true. Things may be at a different time scales. Things may be at different length scales in different universes. That is possible, right? So we cannot rule out that. But at the same time, we just observe there are certain laws in the universe that we observe from our understanding and try to extrapolate it to everything. Even in this world, there are differences in that. Like, for example, initially the Newtonian mechanics came, which says that, the three laws of motion have been given. But then later, when the Einsteinian mechanics has come, like what we call as quantum mechanics, right? There, things are totally different. So what we observe in the physical world do not apply to the micro world, right? So, and there the laws are completely different there. Now the problem is both of them have come from the same origin. How do we reconcile them? How do we put them together? At the time of creation, what was existing? Was that Newtonian physics or was it quantum mechanics? What was existing? How things happened, even in this small universe that we are talking about, is unclear. We don't know because it's a large extrapolation, as I said. And now we try to impose, or we try to take the knowledge that we gain from our observations in this world to another world, to the entire universe, is like in one sense madness actually, because it is impossible to understand the scales of the universe, right? We can only, I mean, even if you send some satellite or whatever, rocket to, let us say, some other planet, like in Prabhupada's words, when Prabhupada was told that, man has gone to moon, Prabhupada said, all that they have brought from moon is some little dust. What is the use of it? So that is not going to solve the problems of life. That is also not going to solve the questions that we are posing right now. The question of creation, question of origin of life, origin of creation. These things cannot be completely answered. You may make a little bit of progress, but then, as I said, compared to the entirety of the universe, compared to the vastness of the universe, the understanding that we can have, the limitation that we ourselves have is like, quite significant in that sense. Like, we cannot actually have the complete understanding of everything. It's impossible. Either our lifespan may not be sufficient, or our brain itself may not be capable of comprehending everything. That's why our scriptures actually very clearly say, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. That when you approach a bona fide spiritual master, the first and foremost quality that we need to have, pariprashnena, is humility, right? Pariprashna, this pari is very important actually. This pariprashna, it's not just prashnena. Prashnena is question. Pariprashnena is in a humble mood. So unless we ask in a humble mood, so the guru actually starts saying that, okay, if you have interest in the knowing the creation, you can know, but know to a certain extent, not like, you can know completely. It's impossible because we are not Krishna, right? We should not try to take the position of Krishna. It's foolish actually. Just like we know this story, right? Like Madhumangal was trying to take the appearance of Krishna by putting that peacock feather and holding a flute just for the sake of getting some butter from the gopis. But at that time, Keshi came, and Keshi had information from Kamsa that Krishna is a boy who wears a peacock feather and he holds a flute in his hand, right? And Madhumangal, I mean, Keshi mistook Madhumangal to be Krishna, and he started charging at Keshi, charging at Madhumangal. At that time, Madhumangal says that, oh, my dear Krishna, it's very difficult to take your role, right? So it may appear as a funny story, but there is a great lesson within that, that we should not try to take the position of Krishna. And precisely, if we see the modern scientific world, atheistic scientists are trying to take the position of God. They are saying that don't put faith in scripture, put faith in us. The second thing they may not say exclusively, but the first thing they are very clearly saying, don't put faith in scripture, right? So by that, what they are meaning is, put faith in us. You put faith in us and we will give you everything. And at the max, what they are able to give is a temperature control, right? Or some control of intensity of light that we have, like even in the dark we can see. These are some things, these are some kind of comforts that they are giving. But then the real problems are brushed underneath. They are not even addressed. That's why Krishna very clearly says in Bhagavad Gita that Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. This is the characteristic of an intelligent person. He understands the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. So what we are pursuing after is quite different in scientific world and in the spiritual world, right? In the spiritual circles, these things are completely different actually. Scientific world is running behind making this world into a better place, right? Whereas the spiritual circles, the main focus is not to make this world into a better place, but rather to go to a place which is already better, right? So that's a big difference actually. Making this world better place, we can tend, or we can try to think in that direction, provided we know all the intricacies of this world, right? We know everything about this world, then we can actually adjust situations and make this world a better place. Unfortunately, as we have discussed today, it is impossible to know everything of the creation in its entirety. The knowledge is so vast and we are so limited. Both are there. So instead of that, the scriptures actually say that, because the scriptures are the word of God, they actually say very authentically that, don't try to change this. It is something like, if you go to India, there are so many mosquitoes, right? Now, one man may come and say that, okay, I will find a solution that I'll kill all the mosquitoes. The second man may say that, okay, instead of killing all the mosquitoes, I'll put a mosquito net around me, which is better. The second thing is better, very easy, simple solution, right? Very easy, very easily accessible, very easily applicable, right? So the second solution is like a spiritual solution. Instead of trying to make this world better, like, kill by killing all the mosquitoes, better try to protect yourself from the mosquitoes by using a mosquito net. Similarly, better try to go to the place which is inherently a place of joy. That is what is defined in the scriptures as a spiritual world. And we also see, like Krishna says in Gita very clearly, that he's certifying, because he's the creator, he can certify also, right? He says that this is the Kalayama Shashvatam. You cannot make this world a better place. So it's like if someone has a residence in a bathroom, the bathroom is stinking all the time, right? And now he may put a odonil, he may put some good fragrance, he may put some room spray, right? And he says that, okay, now it is better, but after some time again it starts stinking, right? So the best solution is get out of the bathroom. Why do we want to stay in the bathroom actually, right? So it is good to know, like Narada Muni is asking these questions with a purpose, right? The purpose is to understand the glory of the Lord. It is not to understand the creation itself, right? It's to understand the glory of the Lord. Very, very clear. We can, because, in the later sections, we can see that even Brahma says that, even in 10th canto, he says that you are like, this prayer is very famous. Brahma says that I am like a jugnum, like a firefly in front of you, Krishna. So we can understand that from here also, from this perspective also, that, Krishna's creation is vast. Even Brahma has difficulty understanding that. So we are insignificant actually. So the best thing is to accept Krishna's words and actually return back home, back to Godhead. So it will be, it is much easier than trying to understand the intricacies of this world. Even the question that Narada Muni is posing here is to understand the glory of God, not just the details of the creation, right? We see the same theme flowing through the descriptions of Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it is Vidura and Maitreya Samvad, or whether it is Brahma and Narada discussing here, or whether it is any section of Srimad Bhagavatam which explains about creation. That is all explained to show that God is so glorious. Krishna is so very vast, so very great. Not, in that discussion, there are many things which are explained also, like, how this universe has come about. All these things are explained to some extent, right? We cannot say that, okay, now after understanding this, I understood everything. Everything is impossible. What we can say is, I have understood everything that I can fit in my brain. That much we can say, because Krishna has given that much in all the scriptures, actually, right? Some people may understand it better. Some people may write books also, which is very good, again, trying to explain things in a much clearer manner to common people. But then even such people cannot claim that I understood everything, because everything is known only to Krishna, right? None of us know. Even Brahma doesn't know everything, actually, right? We are all limited. So when we have this humility, then Krishna actually reveals whatever is required within our heart. So Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha guru tasyaiva katitah yetan prakashante mahatmanah, it is said. When we have implicit faith in the words of spiritual master and Krishna, then the knowledge is revealed within the heart, right? Prakashante, it is said. Prakashante mahatmanah. We can see that very clearly in the example of Srila Prabhupada. He did not hold big degrees, but he was able to, talk to anyone, challenge anyone and bring them to the spiritual understanding, because that prakashante has happened, right? He has an implicit faith in his spiritual master and also Krishna. That's what he writes in Jaladuta prayers, right? So basically, that is the secret. If you want to know what we have to know, Krishna will reveal that, provided we have implicit faith in the words of our Guru and Krishna, right? With that, I will conclude. We still have 4 or 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, you concluded perfectly, and appreciate the class very, very much. So just one minute. Hold on for a second.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. So correct me if I heard you wrong, but I think you mentioned in the very beginning that scientists do not know science thoroughly, nor do the current day, or for that matter, any philosophers also do not know philosophy thoroughly. Something like that. That's what I felt like I heard. So in this section of creation of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are also hearing the detailed description of how the creation came into existence, and this whole Sankhya philosophy, and everything that you explained, the analysis of this, and how one can even get a tiny fraction of this knowledge by the mercy of Guru. And so I was thinking that with all the analysis, whether it is a scientific analysis or philosophical analysis, nothing is going to be of any practical use in even understanding even a fraction of what this is all about. And all that is not the intelligence which ultimately comes into the picture. It is even among the philosophers, those who have accomplished the purpose of the philosophy, or at least let us say who have reached that point of perfection, it is not by any intellectual analysis they have come to that point. It is something beyond the intelligence. because material intelligence is never going to grasp the gravity of this whole thing. And so when you said that even the those who are philosophically inclined also are philosophically inclined ones also, they do not understand philosophy. So I was wondering, like, the intelligence is not the thing which is going to intelligent analysis is not going to help even the philosophically inclined persons, because it is not the intelligence which is ultimately going to help us. It is something beyond intelligence. And so in that context, actually, even words become superfluous. Whichever way we try to present this, words even become superfluous. And yet that unlimited truth can be revealed in one moment to a person who is absolutely illiterate. You don't need any of course, purification of intelligence happens when we think or contemplate the philosophical topics. Absolutely no question about it. But ultimately, none of that is also going to help us. So I was just thinking that the point you made, that philosophers also are not asking, or philosophers are also not using the they're not able to get to the right questions, or philosophers are all not thoughtful. So isn't there something for philosophically inclined people to pay attention to, other than being intelligent and thoughtful or analytical? Isn't there something else they need to pay attention to?
Yes, Mataji, definitely. That's a beautiful point, Mataji. Basically, I quoted this from His Grace Rasaraj Prabhu, and I have understood it in a particular way. When he says about scientists do not know science and spiritualists do not know spirituality or the philosophy thoroughly, what I understood from what he refers to is that most of the scientific advancement, for that matter, is not actually trying to understand the goal of science, or what is the ultimate happiness. That's what even science also seeks out. But then they are not looking at the ultimate happiness, but they are looking at the temporary happiness. Similarly, even the philosophers also, as you said, it goes much beyond the intellectual realm. Actually, it has to come through mercy. There is no other factor which can actually help a living entity understand that he's in the clutches of the material existence. And even after understanding all the details, like this mercy factor is prominently present in the bhakti yoga, definitely. But then there are arohana and avarohana panthas, right? There's two paths of gaining knowledge. One is starting from myself, like a Gyani does. I start trying to analyze things, but then he can only go to up to a certain extent, because he doesn't actually get this mercy factor. And when mercy factor comes, then you will know whatever you are supposed to know. Like Krishna reveals that. Definitely that is true, Mataji. What you said is like, words become superfluous. Intelligence is not capable of comprehending everything. That's very true, Mataji. Again, the same point, what I understood from that statement is that we need to have a thorough, sincere philosophical search also. If we claim ourselves to be spiritualists, we need to have, scriptures help us. Hearing from the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, these three are our reference points, definitely. And Guru also reveals to us so many things. And just like we say, like, Guru operates on our eyes, and Om Jnanatimirandasya, we have that prayer. So Guru actually tries to remove those cataracts and gives us the true vision. But then ultimately it is up to the sadhaka whether he really wants to see or not, right? If he doesn't want to see, then Guru also can help. His help also becomes limited, in the sense, like, as they say, like, God helps those who help themselves. So they actually will go to only certain extent. Although Guru's mercy is available unlimitedly, he only can access only to some extent. So in that sense, what I understood and what I meant to say by that is that even spiritualists have to deepen their search, in the sense of not trying to become like a Gyani, but trying to become like a true devotee who is seeking for mercy, not just knowledge. So when mercy comes, then it actually brings knowledge and renunciation, both of them along with that. Like, bhakti is the mother of these two. So definitely, then all that is supposed to be known will be known to us, right? So that's what I understood, Mataji.
I got your point, and yet I was thinking, I get the point of having a deep philosophical search, and many of us are many of us have that inclination, and yet take it and yet I was feeling like we have this other component to our practice, which is the devotional component, which is the deity worship. Take for example, right? I was thinking that in there is so much is embedded in this the deity worship component, even though deity worship is not properly understood by people who don't know anything about deity worship, right? But even the people who are engaged in deity worship do not understand the component. I mean, what it brings to light. For example, like a simple abhishekam or something which is done in a traditional way, like authentic way. Just watch it. It creates so much of a transformation within the heart of those which hours and hours and hours of lectures cannot do it. And I'm not saying do this in a sentimental way. Recently I was going through the whole 16 upacharas worship. Now in ISKCON, for ordinary people like us, we have this some manual. We just look at it and we ring the bell, we pour the water, give bathe the deities without any kind of those of us, even second initiated people who are doing any of these services, even for us, we haven't thoroughly grasped the significance of how to do this thing properly. So when I was looking into this 16 upacharas process, in traditional settings, from generation to generation, when that worship procedure is being transmitted, there's a whole focus and attention required. It requires extraordinary intelligence to be able to understand why each step is done in a certain sequential way, and it cannot be like you refer a book and do it, you refer a book, and it is not like that at all. It is more like there is a reason why the Brahmanas memorized these things, and there is a reason why they focused on this and systematically did it. Okay, so I was feeling that we have the tools, which is totally a different set of from scientific point of view, we look at it as a tool, but it's not even a tool. It is more, this is the real process, right? And that process is able to communicate a ton of message which is beyond all our intellectual processing. So we have a system where the deity worship component goes parallel with the study of scriptures and everything, right? So that, it's not just, we are not just philosophers, we are also, we have given a practical means of serving the Lord in our physical body, which takes you a lot further by coming into contact with the form of the Supreme Lord, So I was thinking like there is that component to it, which but all of us are not involved in doing that. That is a sad thing, because the Pancharatrika Vidhi and Bhagavata Vidhi, everything is there, but everybody is not involved in doing that. In other words, we are not really, we have not gotten our brain to that point of synthesizing all these things what are given. And if that is given, if we give enough attention to those things with our heart and soul, then there is a what to call it as, it is an all-encompassing thing. It gives you a package which is beyond our intellectual capacity.
That's definitely true, Mataji. Even a simple thing like, putting a rangoli in front of our home has so much deep scientific meaning, which science is revealing or trying to understand now. And, what to speak of such things like deity worship and, temple worship and doing all the Pancharatrika Vidhis and all that. That is actually, I think it will take another few centuries for even science to grasp that these are some scientific procedures. Right? So we are just getting it just like that, actually. And as you said, it is unfortunate that we are not able to, all of us are not able to do that or come to that level. But yeah, definitely what you spoke really makes a lot of sense, Mataji. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
So thank you for the wonderful class. Appreciate that.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you. It's 8:40. I hope we can end here if no one has any other comments. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Once in Columbus, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Kamagiri Mataji,
Yeah.
she was telling us that how much faith, how much love we have for Krishna, that all depends, that's how Krishna can reveal in your heart.
Yes.
If you are intellectually using your brain, and because there was a point that Mataji, somebody was asking, you have to chant this mantra, because in the beginning of the Krishna consciousness, we have to chant the even offering mantra. How do we chant?
Yeah.
And she practiced, she couldn't get it, and then said, please, Krishna, please accept. And with her deep heart, please accept. That's the only thing she started with.
Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't mean that we should not chant mantra. So what I mean to say is, do we have that faith?
Correct.
And do we have that heart of love to love Krishna? Instead of using brain, use your heart. How do you use your heart? You have a faith in Krishna and then accept what Krishna says. And that way Krishna is, if you make your heart open, instead of hard-hearted, make a soft-hearted, then Krishna come and reside in your heart and reveal the secret instead of using your brain.
That's
right?
true.
That's all I'm thinking, because nowadays scientists, they are looking only for a patent, not for that they need to do something. That means they're all looking for credits. They have done it. I need to look for my patent. So in that way, they look for their patent, and that patent is done. Once another patent will come up, and that's gone.
Yes.
That's what's happening, right? That's my understanding, Prabhu.
That's true.
Hare Krishna.
You are definitely right, Prabhu. I am in the scientific world, fortunately or unfortunately, and most scientists have this as a means of their living. So that is very unfortunate. But what to do? That's the nature of the material world. Whereas Krishna says in Gita that patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakti aprayachati tadaham bhakti upahritam. He uses this word bhakti twice in this particular sloka, and that has nothing to do with livelihood or anything. He is simply saying, offer me something very simple, and the way we offer it, actually Krishna accepts it if we offer it with love. And to understand this as a scientific fact is impossible for a common man, actually. I mean, it's possible by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, but what I'm trying to say is, when we try to engage our brain, as you said, it's impossible to understand. But when we engage our heart to understand this, definitely it will just reveal like that very easily, right? So like that, there are millions and millions of scientific principles which are there in devotional service, which we don't realize many times. We just do it as a ritual, as Mataji was saying, like the deity worship and all that. Many times we just do it as a ritual. Even doing that as a ritual itself will benefit us so much, actually. It just clears off so many contaminations in our heart, even without our knowledge. That's how powerful is the process. Only thing is, as you said, Prabhu, that we need to have faith in the process, and we need to have faith in the words of our superiors. Then it is possible to, reveal, or for the facts to reveal in our heart. Otherwise we always remain away from these facts. That's true, Prabhu. Thank you very much for that. So we'll stop here. It is 8:45. Thank you very much for being present today's Bhagavatam class and blessing me with your association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hitai Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.